Good evening. My name is Michael Rylance. Given that everyone across the globe has been living through the COVID-19 pandemic, and with my experience in the biotechnology industry, I wanted to forecast what may be expected for the upcoming winter months for where I currently live, which is in the state of Maryland. This project is completed as part of the Data 620 course for UMGC for Professor Carrie. Before I forecasted for Maryland, I wanted to see how COVID-19 was doing for various parts of the country and for the U.S. as a whole. Using geographical data provided by the CDC, Tableau shows that the three highest states with the COVID mortalities are California with about 150, Texas with about 140, and Florida for about 110. Maryland, by comparison, is about 22,000, which is much less severe. In order to get a more quantitative comparison between the states, the Pareto chart confirms that California, Texas, and Florida are much higher than the other states. And in my state, particularly Maryland, which is about 1/6 of each of these top three states. The Pareto line, which is a percent of the total deaths in the US, shows that a typical Pareto analysis where 80% of the deaths would occur in 20% of the states, or the top 10 states, is not occurring here. This is most likely due to the nature of the pandemic not isolating itself to certain areas of the country, and that all areas and states are at a decent risk of exposure. Since COVID-19 is a novel disease, I wanted to see if there are any comparisons that could be drawn between COVID and any of the diseases on the weekly provisional death count and select causes report by the CDC since the pandemic began in early 2020. This would allow me to have a greater confidence in my forecast against an already established illness. So the illnesses that I chose to compare to are Alzheimer's disease, cerebrovascular disease, COVID-19, with underlying causes, COVID-19 as the source of death, diabetes, and then influenza and pneumonia combined. All of these showed that there was no trend where an R squared was approximately 0.6 for each disease. This showed that there was no real strong trend or correlation between any of these diseases and COVID-19. However, for a second set of data where influenza and pneumonia have been split out, pneumonia has a strong correlation with COVID-19 deaths, with approximately 0.92 R squared. So using this correlation, I then wanted to forecast it for Maryland, and I wanted to break it out between Maryland at 18 to 64 years old, which is my age group, and Maryland 65 years and older, which is my grandparents' age group. I also added trend lines so that I could see the trends throughout the pandemic and see if the forecast would be able to follow that trend line or not. For the winter months, there's approximately 200 deaths per month for the age group 65 years and older, where it would be approximately 100 deaths from my age group in 18 to 64 years old. On the other hand, you also have pneumonia, which has a deaths of approximately 350 a month for 65 and older, and 100 a month for my age group. Since these are similar, I think that Tableau is forecasting a pretty good forecast that I have confidence in. However, I do note that the trend line here for COVID-19 is decreasing, where here in pneumonia it's approximately flat. However, it is rounding to decrease. Given that this is starting in a steeper downtrend than pneumonia, I think that this may be a little bit high of a forecast for each, and that it's probably going to be a little bit lower, especially considering that vaccinations are quite high, however, have not been graphed correlating versus COVID-19 or pneumonia.